Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Saturday, September the 2nd, 2023. I remember in 2020 I wrote an article on my blog, which I haven't really added anything meaningful to for years, so I wouldn't recommend that you visit it. But anyway, I wrote on my blog about the elections and I was considering who one should vote for. Should one have voted for Trump or for Biden? I took the view, but from an environmental perspective, the environment is quite important to me. One should vote for the Democrats. I mean, Trump doesn't really seem to like the environment. On the other hand, having looked at local government here in Washington State, in this city, the Democrats on the city council, they don't seem to really care about the environment either. They seem to do nothing while developers chew the place up. So, I am not convinced that the Democrats really care about the environment. Maybe that's just a myth, and maybe from an environmental perspective, it doesn't really matter. But what I also said was that from a foreign policy perspective, if you cared about the world staying safe, if you cared about there not being nuclear war, you should vote for Trump, because clearly the Democrats are dangerous in a foreign policy perspective. They have issues with Russia. Hillary was blaming Russia for losing the election. In reality, she lost the election because of her terrible campaign, her 2016 election. Now, I was just looking at an interview that Tucker Carlson did with Viktor Orbán, the Hungarian Prime Minister. And Viktor Orbán was kind of making the same point that I was making, that, from a foreign policy point of view, if you want to not blow up the world, Trump is the man. He was saying, if you want to end the war in Ukraine, Orbán said, call back Trump. It's the only way out. Indeed, he went so far as to say that Trump was a potential savior of the Western world. I'm not absolutely sure about that, but I suppose the Western world is in terminal decline. It seems like that. So what I wanted to do in this video is actually look at the horoscopes of Tucker Carlson and Viktor Orbán. There is certain similarities between the two men's charts. I did look at Tucker Carlson's chart a few months back, but I want to look at it again. I want to consider his relationship with the United States, because I've started doing this, comparing people's horoscopes with the United States horoscope. And I think one finds some really interesting stuff going on. Critics and detractors of Tucker Carlson, who might also be into astrology, might actually compare Tucker Carlson with Pearl Harbor. So I'll talk about that comparison between Tucker Carlson and Pearl Harbor. That is the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. There's something similar astrologically between the two men and how they occur to the United States. But anyway, before I do that, I want to look at what's going on today. And today is Saturday, September the 2nd, 2023. So let's look at the planets for today. So here we are. As usual, this is a chart set for noon, New York, September the 2nd. The moon is still in Aries. Now, yesterday I made a big thing about the moon being opposition to Mars, but that has moved on. So the sort of the anger that that's connected with that moon opposition Mars, that has broken up. We do see that the moon is conjunct Chiron today. Chiron traditionally, or not very traditionally at all, because it was only discovered in 1977. Chiron is connected with the centaur, Chiron, the wounded healer, and so moon conjunct Chiron may suggest that for some of us we may have the opportunity to do some healing. I mean, I don't mean that in a sort of dramatic way, like healing someone who's just had a heart attack, but more healing on perhaps a spiritual, psychological level, being able to make people feel better about themselves. Yeah, I think with moon conjunct Chiron, that's something that some of us might be able to do. Aries, I know it has a reputation for being very abrasive, but it can be, I don't know, there is something weirdly soothing about an Aries if it's in exactly the right situation. Somehow they, because I think it's because Aries is a fire sign. They can bring a sense of confidence to the situation, and so moon in Aries conjunct Chiron. If someone's upset about something, they're not sure, everything seems difficult and bad. There's an opportunity to bring some confidence to someone, to make them sort of know that things are going to get better. So that's the moon Chiron conjunction. There's also a trine between the moon and Venus. So you can see the moon is in Aries, Venus is in Leo. So that is a fortunate aspect. It's also quite reassuring. It's about reaching out, getting on with people, providing some excitement in a social situation, because moon in Aries, Venus in Leo, both of them are in fire signs. So yeah, there is some excitement there. As far as relationships are concerned, Moon Venus trine it's a good time to make contact with new people, to strengthen existing relationships. So yeah, don't spend the day completely alone. Try to meet people, see if you can make the most of your contacts with them, because yeah, I think that is a fortunate aspect. At the same time, the Sun is aspecting the Mars-Jupiter midpoint. So there's Mars, there's Jupiter. So the Sun is making a semi-square to the Mars-Jupiter midpoint. Sorry, yeah, Sun. So that's actually quite energetic. It's a time when we can make things happen. Our enthusiasm can really move things along. So if we're with people, be enthusiastic, be optimistic, get people going, be a leader perhaps. But, with Mars, Jupiter, we've always got to make sure we don't overdo it. We've got to know what the limits of the situation actually are. And while all this is going on, we have the same contact that we had yesterday, which we have the Aries point and Jupiter aspecting the Mars-Neptune midpoint. And I just repeat the warning I made yesterday that you've got to avoid stuff connected with sleaze, things that are illegal, things that are criminal, things connected with drugs, alcohol, all that kind of stuff. It might sound tantalizing, but it really does need to be avoided. Mars Neptune can lead one down a very dangerous path. So that's a broad picture for today. I think overall it should be a good day. I think that the moon in Aries, trine Venus in Leo is lucky, and we can gain a great deal from the people around us. So what I want to do now, as usual, is I want to look at the 12 signs, and I want to make my forecast for the 12 signs of the zodiac. So here we go. These are my forecasts for today, which is Saturday, September the 2nd, 2023. Aries, you're able to be yourself without having to apologize. Your rough edges are smoothed by a favourable aspect between the Moon and Venus, and your optimism and your zest for life are also going to help. Nonetheless, you do need to show some restraint. There are temptations, and these temptations could lead you into areas that really you should not be visiting. Taurus, you're okay where you are, so there's no need to travel somewhere else in search of opportunity and excitement. And if anyone needs to talk to you, then they can get in touch at a distance. But some Taurians can start planning for the future in a secretive kind of way. That's right, the less other people know, the better. Gemini. Geminis are given a lift by an 120-degree aspect between the Moon and Venus. You find it easier to communicate, and your sociability will be at the top of the range. But socializing for the sake of socializing will have limited appeal. What you're really looking for is a new purpose, which only some people can provide. Cancer. You've got things to do, and it's not a day for staying in bed or for twiddling your thumbs and toes. If you can go into work over the weekend, that would be great, or else you might want to do something that is connected with finance and business. Yet the Moon makes a conjunction to the comet and minor planet Charon. Someone's psychological wound needs to be healed. Leo. Sometimes Leos can be very stuck in their ways and be uninterested in alternative ways of doing things. Well, today you need to show some imagination, and you need to perhaps reconsider your current path. Maybe it needs to be adjusted, and maybe a relationship with someone from a very different background should be given some consideration. Virgo. At first sight, there isn't much going on today, but really it's what you make of it. You've got powerful feelings, and if you harness these feelings, you could have a big impact on the world around you. You may have an analytical streak, but you can also be very passionate, and with passion comes the possibility of amazing results. Libra. Relationships are likely to be important. After all, the Moon continues moving through Aries, your opposite sign, where it aspects Venus. If you're with sympathetic people on your wavelength, romance is a real possibility if that's something you want. And in general, for best results, it might be best to show a small amount of vulnerability. Scorpio. You're in a situation where you feel that you can't properly assert yourself, perhaps because you've got unwanted responsibilities or you have overcommitted yourself. But maybe you need to look at things again from a different angle. You've got a lot of resources at your disposal, and with the right friends and allies, there should be no difficulty getting your way. Sagittarius. You're in a good position, but you are capable of making serious mistakes. yes, the world does give you many opportunities, and it seems to give you permission to do pretty much what you like. But just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should actually go and do it. And shallow waters could become deep and dangerous waters very quickly. Capricorn. As the moon continues moving through Aries, you feel a need to relax and to put responsibility on hold. You can nonetheless exert a beneficial influence on the world around you and perhaps go some way towards calming people down. But if today there is any anger, then it's probably best to sidestep the situation rather than to confront it. Aquarius. There are some things that people just don't want to say, and you can be the person to say it. It might seem rather tactless, but in the end, the truth has to come out. Besides, honesty is a precious commodity, and if you're true to yourself, then you will find that your approach will eventually win new admirers. I should also say that it seems that partners have a lot of energy. That's because the Sun is on the Mars-Jupiter midpoint, and in the Aquarius chart, solar chart, the Sun rules the 7th house of relationships. So Sun on the Mars-Jupiter midpoint, or aspecting a Mars-Jupiter midpoint, can mean partners with a lot of energy. Pisces. Jupiter, your ruling planet, is configured with the Mars-Neptune midpoint. Saturday is a day of temptations, and Pisceans could drift into the wrong scene. Even if you don't, you could engage in activities which do you no good. It's therefore important that you make a special effort to behave yourself. So let's now move on to the I Ching. And as always, I threw 3 coins in the air, having asked the question, what will Saturday be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? And I got a single hexagram, and it doesn't move. It's hexagram number 48, the well. The well is about something that is always there. And it's also a reminder that fundamentally people don't change. I mean, when you think about a well, a well is, you dig into the ground to get some water out of it. And that's how humans have got their water for thousands and thousands of years. That basic principle. Okay, the principle of digging might have become more sophisticated, but it's the same principle now. You dig down and hopefully there's some water down there, unless the aquifer you're on has been completely drained by excessive agricultural and domestic consumption. So it's talking about something that's always there. And so, if we are feeling that something's missing in our life, that we've got to go and find it, we've got to talk to people, we've got to go to the other side of the world, just forget it. Because what you're looking for is always there. You don't have to run after it. It's probably right in front of you. So use the resources that you've already got. This may apply to, for example, to buying stuff. You may feel you want to spend money on things to celebrate the fact, I don't know, but it's the beginning of September. But, the well, maybe you already own this stuff. The stuff is always there. And, that water, the bottom of the well, it's kind of there for free, isn't it? I mean, you had the village well. People had access to the water. People shouldn't have to pay for water. And it's the same thing, with, stuff that you're thinking about buying. There may be things you want to buy today, which really you don't need because you already actually own them, but maybe you just want to spend the money, or you want something new and shiny. So that is, that is the principle, and it's and if something we already own has got damaged, it just needs to be restored. I Ching has different views of a well, and sometimes, the well, the walls of a well have got damaged, or the bucket has got broken, but still it can be fixed. So don't go crazy looking for something, thinking you've got to do everything you can to get hold of it, because actually it's already there. And I think that is the message of the well. So I'm now going to look at Tucker Carlson's horoscope. I'm just going to focus on the astrology. I understand that he is, he is a very famous journalist who used to work for Fox News. He left Fox News. He's now presenting is it Tucker on Twitter. He's been doing that since June the 6th. I don't think Fox are very happy about it. Maybe they're suing him. I have already looked at his chart, but I just want to, look at his chart again. And, hopefully this time round, I might sort of notice some new things. So, here is his chart. He was born on May the 16th, 1969, 10:07 a.m. in San Francisco. With this chart, what should we be looking for? One thing, there are no personal planets in water signs in his chart. That might mean that he can be quite insensitive. That might mean that at times he can't completely pick up on what's going on around him. Maybe he comes over as being thick-skinned. Maybe maybe having no water has an advantage. Because if you don't have any water in your chart, then you can say it as you see it, without really picking up on the reactions that other people might have. So maybe it allows you to be completely, blatantly open and honest about what you think, and you just don't care because you've got no water in your chart. You don't get the emotional kickback that perhaps prevents some of us from expressing our opinions. So that's one thing about his chart. Another thing about his chart is, very obvious. This is, easy astrology. He's got Mercury in Gemini. That's very good for someone who likes to talk. But it's opposition Mars. So, someone who's got Mercury-Mars opposition, there's a lot of anger there. There's verbal anger. And, Mercury in Gemini is particularly verbal. So, his monologues and the anger he can show, the controlled anger he shows, that would be the Mercury-Mars opposition. There's a certain scatter there. The anger isn't always perhaps as focused as it should be. It can scatter into different places. But yeah, I think that Mercury-Mars opposition really says a great deal about who he is. He also has a new moon in Taurus. Karl Marx had a new moon in Taurus. I was born with a new moon in Taurus. New moon in Taurus is incredibly stubborn. He is a Taurus. I mean, he's a super Taurus because he's got the sun and moon in Taurus. He's probably quite fixed in his opinions, even though Mercury is in Gemini. Mercury in Gemini is more about how those opinions get communicated. It's not the opinions themselves. It's the Sun-Moon conjunction which really is, who he is, and he being very very stubborn about it. But the Sun-Moon, this Sun-Moon conjunction, and I mentioned this last time I talked to him. It's a bit of an enigma because I don't really know a great deal about him, but he does have Neptune on the Sun-Moon midpoint. He's got Neptune opposition the Sun, Neptune opposition the Moon. Now, I wonder how that works. I've just said that he doesn't have any water in his chart. Now, does that Neptune give him some sensitivity nonetheless to pick up, what some sectors of the American people want to hear? Of course, he's a divisive figure, so it's always going to be no more than half the American people want to hear what he's got to say. The other half may hate him for it. But that's the cost of being divisive. So that Sun Moon opposition Neptune, it does make me think that sometimes he can make mistakes. There is a capacity there for him to make to have poor judgment is certainly possible with that Neptune. So that's an aspect of his chart. What I also find interesting is that he has got Uranus at 0 degrees 4 minutes Libra. Uranus, when it's on the cardinal cardinal point, 0 degrees Aries, 0 degrees Libra, 0 degrees Cancer, 0 degrees Capricorn. So he's got Uranus right there on a cardinal point, and that is the rebel. Now, not everyone who has Uranus exactly on the cardinal point is going to be a rebel, but if you have got a position where you can be a rebel, then like being a super famous, well-connected journalist, then you can really start to channel that Uranus in Libra. So by rebel, whether or not the rebel has a cause, I don't know, but it's like wanting to overthrow the existing order. Uranus in Libra. Libra is about balance. You've put Uranus in Libra. It's about upsetting the balance. Looking at what makes people feel comfortable, what makes perhaps America feel comfortable, and then just saying something to threaten the whole thing. So there is a certain danger there. Remember, he's got Mercury in Gemini. Mercury in Gemini can get bored. To cause trouble, maybe just for the sake of it. So that's something to consider. And that Uranus is conjunct quite close to his south node. So south node is the line of least resistance. Maybe he has enjoyed doing that in the past, who knows, in a previous incarnation or whatever. It's too easy for him to cause chaos, to say things to upset people. It's just easy for him, maybe too easy. Maybe in terms of his own development, he needs to kind of perhaps move away from that. Now, as far as how Tucker Carlson occurs to the United States, what does he do to the United States? Does he have any impact? I would have said he probably does. He has a very large fan base. If he says things, a lot of people are going to believe him. So if he says things about whether it's about the election, whether it's about Trump, whether it's about Biden, his opinions, people will listen to him, and it's going to affect the US. Now, one thing that he has got that he's particularly he's got a lot of attention for recently has been his view on the war in Ukraine. As I understand it, he is fairly opposed to his country's intervention in Ukraine, for his country stirring up this proxy war. He seems to take the view that America, or certainly its allies, were responsible for the blowing up of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And he's not afraid of publicizing this and talking about it. He is influential. So how does he connect with the United States? So let's that reminds me, one other thing. His sun is conjunct Algol. And Algol is a fixed star, which is the head of the demon. It's the most dreaded star of them all. It's in Arabic, Ras Al Ghul, head of the demon. In the stars, it's Perseus holding up the Medusa's head. So that might be the Medusa's head is that star, Ras Al Ghul. So what does that mean? Does it mean the head of the demon? Does that mean a capacity for evil? That's one possibility, particularly if you're someone who doesn't like him. I mean, I'm sure an astrologer who was a Democrat. Quite a lot of astrologers support the Democrats. You would look at his sun on Algol, and you would that would really confirm everything you thought about him. So yes, maybe he's got a capacity for nastiness with sun on Algol. I think with Algol, actually, there can be a certain vanity to Algol. Reason being is, if you kind of look at the legends and you think about why was the Medusa why did she look like the way she did? She upset the gods. And I think it had something to do with the way she looked, and it was punishment. It was some kind of punishment, maybe for a lack of humility. I think maybe she was beautiful before she got changed into Medusa, the Gorgon with the snakes coming out of her hair and all that kind of stuff. I should have looked up the mythology just to be clear about that, but you probably know it more than I do. So I think that there can be a certain arrogance with Sun conjunct Algol. Even quite a basic arrogance about the way you look, being very concerned about the way you look. I mean, that can be an aspect with Sun on Algol. Now, as far as the way he hits the United States, so let's just look at the United States chart. Here is the United States chart. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the United States chart in the middle, and I'm going to put Tucker Carlson's chart in on the outside. So a couple of things here. Well, now I mentioned the fact that there was a similarity between his chart and Pearl Harbor. So when Pearl Harbor happened, this is December the 7th, 1941, 7:30 a.m., Pearl Harbor Naval Station, the Japanese attack. There was a Sun-Mercury conjunction at sort of 7:15 Sagittarius, and this was opposition Jupiter in Gemini. So, going back to the USA's chart, that Sun-Mercury conjunction was right on the USA, was kind of straddling the USA's ascendant, and Jupiter was pretty close to the descendant. So that opposition was right across the USA's ascendant-descendant axis. So going back to Tucker Carlson, he has a Mercury-Mars opposition. Remember, it was all that the Mercury-Mars opposition in his chart is, all about his not just his anger, but the way he uses words, the vitriol, perhaps, of Mercury opposition Mars, right across America's ascendant. He's really hitting the country there with that Mercury opposition Mars. I mean, I think he's affecting it, and you can see that it's kind of doing a similar thing to the Pearl Harbor opposition. So that's one aspect of his chart. Then there is his Uranus. Uranus, as I said, he has Uranus at 0 degrees 4 minutes Libra. And his Uranus is right on America's midheaven. So that is, I would have said, stirring things up in quite a major way. The midheaven is about government, the president, whether it's Biden or Trump or whatever, and he does have the capacity to, I suppose, potentially to cause a lot of damage. Certainly to cause change. Whether or not that change is good or not, well, I suppose that depends on what you believe in, doesn't it? And then there is his ascendant. His ascendant is 24/14 Cancer, and America's Mercury, the United States' Mercury is at 24, is also at 24 Cancer. So I mean, I think that must have really helped his career, that America's Mercury was right on his ascendant, and I suppose that must have helped him communicate with this country for better or for worse. So what I'm really trying to demonstrate is that Tucker Carlson has strong connections with the United States chart. He actually has some very disruptive connections with the United States chart, and he is therefore not someone that should be discounted. His opponents, people, supporters of Biden and so forth, might feel they can discount him, but I don't think they can. I think this is someone who is pretty influential, and I think this is certainly shown in his horoscope and in the way he interacts with the United States chart. So a few days ago, I think he went all the way to Hungary and had an interview with Viktor Orbán, the Prime Minister of Hungary. So Orbán, he's been Prime Minister of Hungary on and off for ages. I mean, I think he first became Prime Minister in 1998, and so he's been around for a long time. And progressives can't stand him. He is seen as a kind of for the Hungarians, maybe the thinking man's Trump. I mean, he's clearly a very intelligent person. He's, or rather, should I say, the thinking Hungarian's Trump. He is seen by his critics as being authoritarian, of being illiberal, of being nationalistic, supporting the nation state, The European Union can't stand him, and you know, and you know, in his interview with Tucker Carlson, you know, he was asked about, I think he was asked about his own feelings of safety, and you know, whether America might do him in. I mean, not do him in perhaps literally, but you know, might somehow remove him from office. And I think he acknowledged that these things can happen, and it was something obviously he is thinking about. And you know, as we know from America is a country that's well into regime change, so and it has been since the Second World War. So yes, he would be vulnerable from this. So as far as Viktor Orbán's horoscope is concerned, he, like Tucker Carlson, doesn't have any water in his chart. Okay, he's got sort of Chiron in Pisces, Neptune in Scorpio, North Node in Cancer, but these are generational things. Fundamentally, he doesn't have any water. And what's interesting about Viktor Orbán is that he kind of says it as it is. So you know, everyone in the West, all these Western leaders are kind of saying that, oh yeah, Ukraine's doing fine, Ukraine's not going to lose against Russia. But he says Ukraine is going to lose against Russia. He absolutely recognizes the losses that Ukraine is taking in this war, you know, hundreds of thousands. And so he seems to be the only politician that is completely open about it. So why is that? Well, he's a Gemini, like Trump. You know, Trump likes to say it as it is. He doesn't care about who he offends. Trump does have water in his chart, but you know, you can see that Orbán has Sun in Gemini. It's square Pluto in Virgo. Sun Pluto square, by the way, is quite someone who's probably quite into power. He likes to be in control. He has Cancer on the midheaven. Now he doesn't have any water in his chart. He does have Cancer on the midheaven. So, and he has North Node in Cancer on the midheaven. So you know, that is the direction he should be taking. Now, Cancer is about the tribe. It's about the clan. It's about the nation state. And you could say that Viktor Orbán, whatever you think, in terms of his own particular destiny, is absolutely correct to be talking about the nation state. You know, and he's in Hungary, which Hungary is a nation that has had a long-standing chip on its shoulder. After the First World War, and I think it was the Treaty of Trianon, you know, it lost loads and loads of territory all over the place. It was this very substantial country, but it lost stuff. You know, it used to own sort of Slovakia, parts of Romania, parts of what's now Ukraine. So there is a chip on its shoulder, on Hungary's shoulder. And Viktor Orbán, with his North Node in Cancer, midheaven in Cancer, he is very, very aware of this chip on his shoulder. You know, he was talking, for example, about the part of Ukraine that has a large Hungarian-speaking minority, and he was saying in this interview that these are Hungarians. These are Hungarians who are dying on a daily basis because they're conscripted into the Ukrainian army, are sent to the front and are dying. And he was really saying these are Hungarians, and they're dying. And I think maybe that is his midheaven, Cancer midheaven, North Node MC in Cancer. He's perhaps expressing that, and you know, one might disagree with him, one might agree with him, whatever. But for him and for his particular destiny, that is the right thing to be doing. Also notice that he's got Mars on Regulus. Regulus is the royal star, so it's not surprising that he wants to be, I won't say a king, but he certainly seems to have an affinity for power with Mars conjunct Mars on Regulus. His Mars is also its opposition Saturn. So Mars opposition Saturn. That's tough. Mars Saturn on in fixed signs, and it's something that could cause a lot of destruction. Mars Saturn opposition. Sort of Mercury is sort of widely on the T of that. So that's not really not very easy for him. Those are some sort of features, some features of his chart. I did want to look at his astrocartography. Look at how he's got Jupiter almost exactly on the 7th house cusp. Now, Jupiter on the 7th house cusp can mean that you are the recipient of generosity. In 1989, he was awarded a scholarship by the Soros Foundation. Remember, I talked about George Soros yesterday, to study at Oxford, and so he went off to Oxford. But then he didn't stay there very long because he wanted to get back into, he wanted to stand for Parliament or something. The Soros Foundation had identified him as someone who could represent its ideology. Soros, open society, breaking down communism, and he's turned out to be completely the opposite. Not a Soros man. In fact, the Soros's various foundations and NGOs, they've left Hungary because Orbán has made it very difficult for them to operate. I suppose you could say he wanted to be in control, and he didn't want to be undermined by NGOs concerned about open government, open society, and all that kind of stuff. So as far as his astrocartography is concerned, I just want to set up a map for an astromap. I'll set it for Europe. So this is his astrocartography. There are just two lines. This is for Europe, and there are two lines. These are all the places in Europe at the moment he was born where the moon was on the ascendant. And these are all the places where Jupiter was on the descendant. So it's interesting that if you look at this moon line, it seems to go pretty much exactly through Oxford. Oxford is a bit west of London. I mean, I don't know what relevance that is, but that's where he got his scholarship to Oxford. I don't know. I suppose that would have helped with his. I mean, he speaks very good English, but I wonder what his experience was like in Oxford. But that's a part of the world that is configured. The Jupiter opposition, the descendant, that's kind of more interesting because here's Hungary in this sort of little country here. Remember, it used to be a very big country, this small Central European country, and assuming he was born at exactly at 2 p.m., this Jupiter opposition, the descendant line, goes slightly to the east of Hungary, and it goes through western Ukraine. But maybe what's more relevant is that this line goes through parts of Ukraine with a Hungarian minority that I suspect Viktor Orbán feels should come back to Hungary. So perhaps what a lot of people in Hungary want is for Ukraine to disintegrate and for bits of it to return to, where they should be, perhaps where they should be, there are a lot of minorities in Ukraine. Of course, you've got the Russian minority, which, or not hardly a minority, is it a minority? But, there are lots of different ethnicities in Ukraine, people speaking different languages. And so maybe that's what Orbán is thinking about, and maybe that Jupiter opposition, the descendant going through that part of Ukraine, suggests that maybe it will happen. Maybe he's going to have a chance to expand his country to the east. Obviously not right now, but maybe if and when Ukraine disintegrates, maybe there's going to be an opportunity there for Hungary to get back its stuff, which it really believes that it lost. So that's the astrocartography. So those are a few thoughts about Viktor Orbán's chart. But there is the question of how the United States impacts him. In his interview, as I said, with Tucker Carlson, there was a certain sense in which he might be afraid of what the United States might do to him. That he might be overthrown, or somehow a situation might be created by the United States which forces him out of office. I think that concern was there. So that raises the question of how the United States impacts him. So let's put up a bi-wheel. So we've got Orbán's chart in the middle, and we've got the America's July the 4th, 1776 chart on the outside. And so there is Orbán's sun at 9 Gemini, and you can see that Uranus, the planet of revolution, which is in America's chart, is conjunct his sun. So America's Uranus is conjunct, the United States' Uranus is conjunct Orbán's sun. That is, I would have said, cause for concern. Uranus is the planet of revolution. It's the planet of overthrowing people. And so there is, I think, a real danger astrologically there that the United States may actively work to try to get rid of him. It really is in the chart. There is America's ascendant, 12 Sagittarius, so the descendant would be 12 Gemini. So, remember, America is very good at, it projects everything. It can't, having Uranus on the descendant, it projects everything onto the world. It can't accept the fact that it itself is a destabilizing force. Rather, it sees everyone else as being a destabilizing force. And that would perhaps include Viktor Orbán. So it projects onto Orbán this idea that he is a bad person, someone who's trying to upset its position in the world. And then with that Uranus, it might then try and overthrow him. Quite how, I don't know, but the CIA has its ways. Particularly now, 73, isn't it? It's the anniversary of 50 years ago. I think pretty much now is the anniversary of the overthrow of Allende in Chile. CIA completely behind that. And we got Pinochet, pretty much a sort of fascist military government taking over from Allende. So, America, United States does that kind of stuff. They do that stuff all the time. Yes, Orbán perhaps needs to be a bit careful with that. But it's not all bad. There is Orbán's midheaven at 1047 Cancer, and America's sun got a Sun-Jupiter conjunction on his midheaven. So there's another aspect to the United States which is kind of more favorable to him, can help him achieve what he needs to achieve. And maybe that other aspect of the United States is Trump. So whether or not the United States is dangerous to Orbán perhaps depends on who is president. And this goes back to Orbán's point in his interview with Tucker Carlson when he said, call back Trump, because it's the only way out. Well, not certainly out of the war with Ukraine, but maybe it's kind of useful for his own political survival to have Trump back. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say on the subject of Viktor Orbán. I hope you find that interesting, and I will talk to you tomorrow.